Ladies and gentlemen, it is your sweet Zionist Prince Tall, the traveling clack, coming to you live from Israel once again. We've got a clip from Mosab Hassan Youssef, the Green Prince. We love him very much on this show. Let's take a look.
So you talk about being pulled by the currents of political ideology. I can agree with you. Right, that being pulled by the political ideology of Islamism is completely incorrect and immoral. But it seems as though you haven't really dived too deep below the waters, and it seems that you're being pulled by a different current and a different ideology. And I think the ideology that you're preaching here is in more than one way Islamophobic. And let me explain to you why I believe so. I will equally condemn Hamas right here on the spot so we can all be clear in this room, right? Thank you for that. But what you are saying, right, and you talk about the treatment of blacks, you talk about the treatment of women, right? You talk about the only democracy in the Middle East. You talk about Arab inability to forge nations, to forge countries. You talk about the lack of existence of a Palestinian.
Don't only talk about it.
I understand. That's you're making my point for me. Thank you. You talk about the lack of existence of a Palestinian identity, and with all due respect, I know you're Palestinian, or some would say that you are. So you have a right to, disavow yourself of that. But you do not have a right to tell other people that their identity does not exist. I believe that it is incorrect, it is immoral to say what identities do and do not exist, to dictate. That is almost the definition of being a bigot, right? And I'm not trying to name call right now, I'm just trying to call it how I see it, right? And so if we can both agree that we're going to condemn Hamas, but also equally refrain from being Orientalist, refrain from being Islamophobic, then we can have a productive conversation. But I am sorry, sir, your rhetoric is inflammatory. You trade in fear. You trade in fear.
Now you're accusing me. You're accusing me.
Closing point.
It's your point to just accuse me.
Closing point.
Okay.
I'm calling it how I see it, so feel free.
I'm literally so excited for Mosab to just rip into this guy.
Retort, but this is my last point. So Samuel Huntington has this idea of the clash of civilizations, right? And I saw you spoke to Sam Harris. Sam Harris subscribes to this idea as well. But you portray this idea of the Islam versus the West. And I think this is a very, very dangerous idea. If we're both talking about Islamists, right, we can kind of get on the same page. But you say Islamist, but in your rhetoric you describe the Islamic civilization generally, proper, right? So let's just make sure we're getting clear about that. But I think that is inflammatory. I think that you're trading in fear, and I think that is very, very harmful. And that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, well, look, you can call somebody who's not familiar with a phenomena that they have a phobia of that. Like someone has a phobia of something that is unknown to them. You can say that. You can say this about anybody who did not grow up in that region. But as someone who went to a Sharia school, someone who memorized huge portions of the Quran, someone who speaks the classic Arabic, someone who studied so many.
For those of you guys who don't know, by the way, in Arabic, there's Fusha and Amiya. I'm actually learning Amiya right now, which Amiya is like the spoken Arabic in the spoken world. It's got a bunch of different dialects. Fusha is known as the Arabic, the old classical Arabic, the same Arabic that's written in the Quran that's right there behind me. And it's something to remember, because if you don't speak Fusha and you don't totally understand it, the way that Mosab does, you'll never really understand how to interpret the Quran in especially the more vulgar things that it says about Jews and Christians.
Denominations, you cannot accuse them. Are you listening to my answer? You see, you're busy right now, right? Suddenly you're busy.
Listen, I heard exactly what you had to say, and I agree. Islamophobic.
But you want to debate me right now?
Maybe after.
You want to debate me? Then you need to listen to me until I finish.
Please.
Sit down and listen. Okay. So I speak on experience, much longer experience than your experience combined. Not to reduce you, but have you been to a Sharia school?
No, but
you haven't. Have you studied the Sharia? Have you studied the Sharia, the 4 major books of legislation? Have you studied them?
Not fully in depth, but I understand Sharia. I studied Sharia.
So name the 4 main sources of Islam. Why you cannot do it? You said that you studied it.
When you have Sharia, you're talking about Sharia jurisprudence, you have...
I need the sources. There are 4 main sources of Islam all Muslims agree on. What are the 4 sources?
You have Sunnah, you have Hadith, right? You have Quran, right?
That's not it. That's not it. You forgot Qiyas and Ijma'. So please sit down and listen. Please sit down and listen. I don't have phobia of Islam. I was born in Islam. You cannot tell a couple that they have a phobia of cats, because this is their environment. You know, you tell somebody who never been to the situation Islamophobic. But I, as a son of the religion, I don't have a phobia. I have the right to rebel. I have the birthright to rebel. I tell you something. I don't mind speaking to him after the event if this is what he wants, okay? And I don't mind actually debating someone. But the thing is, when you accuse someone, you must support. You know, you accuse me of Islamophobia. This is a big accusation. How can be Islamophobic if this is my natural environment? You know, you cannot tell a fish that a fish is afraid of water.
Well,
You know,
why don't
this
you have the
nonsense.
last word?
Let me just respond very, very quickly. I don't believe that Islamophobia is a helpful word, right? I think bigotry towards Muslims may be a better one, right? But I'm just using the word that most people understand. When I say that, people know what I'm talking about, right? That's all I'm saying. But we can have this conversation. I wouldn't dwell over the semantics right now, but we could have this conversation more in depth.
Okay,
That's
but
what I
also you need to understand.
Thank you. And
know,
I think
that
Mr. Yusuf is saying he is not a bigot.
This is,
but
if
I'll let
it
him-
was a different function, okay, and I can talk Islam with you all day long, I have no fear, I have no problem of discussing religion, criticizing religion. It's our freedom in this country. You know, people criticize Christianity, criticize Judaism, they make fun of the gods. Why cannot I make the fun of the gods, you know, that I was brought up? But anyway, this is not the right place. Look, I don't want to be offensive. I don't want to be offensive to anybody, but thank you for bringing the topic. We were focusing on Gaza. You tell me that you're from Sudan. You're about like 2,000 miles away. Have you ever been to Palestine or to Israel? You never been there. So you shake your head when I said the black situation in the territories in denial, but you never been there. Okay.
He says you're talking about the region. Here's the deal, buddy. Across the entire region, there's racism against black people. In the whole region, and we're going from Morocco till Iran. The whole region. Want to go to Pakistan even further? We could go there. The whole region, the Islamic Arab world, discriminates openly against black people. If that's the hill that you want to die on, it's not going in your favor, Habibi. It's not going in your favor at all. I don't remember what he said. Did he say Sudan or Somalia? I'm not sure where he said he was from.
Look, man, I like to build bridges, but false accusations I don't like. And I don't like hypocrisy. I like free people who don't hide in the crowd.
I'm sorry, we really have to.
Islamophobia is such a funny thing to throw at Mosab Hassan Youssef. If there's one person, I also don't believe in this term, Islamophobia. I don't know how you could be phobic. Can you be Christian phobic? Can you be Jew phobic? No. You can be an anti-Semite, which means you specifically hate the Jewish ethno-religious group. You want to kill Jewish people. But Islamophobia, it's like there's a lot of people with genuine PTSD from Islam. A lot of ex-Muslims, they talk about this. They don't even have a term that they're allowed to use because, like, yeah, Islamophobia might actually be kind of a semi-normal term to say, hey, you have a genuine fear of Muslims or Islam because it's either destroyed your life, made your life very hard, ruined your community, ruined your family, ruined you. But I don't really believe in this whole Islamophobia thing. I don't think you could be Islamophobic towards Muslims because Muslims they're not really a group of people. It's 2 billion people who subscribe to some form of Islam that are all extremely fragmented just between the Sunni and the Shiite branch. You know, you have people from the same group who want to murder each other based on not believing who was the second upcoming person for the following person for the Prophet. So when we talk about what's Islamophobic, you can't even really put your finger on what it means to be Islamophobic. Probably listening to my rhetoric, my rhetoric, people would consider me Islamophobic. Do I have a right to be Islamophobic? Let's talk about it for a second. All 4 of my grandparents were kicked out of Muslim countries for being Jewish people. Then where they ran to as refugees in Israel, they were attacked for 3 generations. I'm the 3rd generation who's being attacked by Muslim Arabs, by Muslims, in the name of Islam, while chanting Allahu Akbar, as they attack me and my family and my community and my grandparents and my cousins. They say Allahu Akbar. They say Lalla Allah. They say Muhammad was the only prophet. They say Khaybar Khaybar ya Yahud. They say Itbakh Itbakh ya Yahud, as they're going to kill me, my parents, my grandparents. 3 generations. Don't forget, my great-grandparents made it to this land too, because they ran away from their home. I never got a chance to meet my great-grandparents. It's 4 generations in the same land chased down by radical Muslims. But that all started in the region. Do I have a right to be Islamophobic? Do I have a right? Am I allowed to be somewhat fearful of Muslims? I'm not, I would say. I would say that I have reservations about the organized part of that religion, but I'm not generally afraid of Muslims because I've had nothing but overwhelmingly great experiences with one by one individual Muslims that I've crafted those relationships with. And I understand the Muslim world more than the average Joe. So I'm not necessarily afraid of Muslims. But what if I was? Am I not given that right, considering all the fucking trauma that my family has gone through, and then somewhat myself? I'll say it's never been as bad for me as it was for my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents. But am I allowed? Or no, because it's Islam, you're not allowed to criticize. You're not allowed to be afraid. Sit on that one for a little bit. Let that one cook a little bit. Come back to me with an answer in the comments down below. I love you guys a long time. Thanks for watching and supporting the channel. If you believe in my content and want to support me, just know your help is needed. There's a bunch of great ways to support me, being PayPal, Buy Me a Coffee, or joining my Patreon community down below. Patreon is the best way to support my channel, and you'll get a bunch of cool perks depending on what tier you join. Another great way to support me is by buying my merchandise on thetravelingclat.com. I regularly drop new merch designs like this beautiful hat, or this amazing shirt, where you can support the channel and get something cool for yourself. I also have an amazing Discord community with people from all over the world. Thank you so much for your support.